All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
There is a shift going on the planet now. In consciousness, there's an awakening, more awareness, more expansion of consciousness.
We have a rule. We never free a mind once it's reached a certain age. It's dangerous. The mind has trouble letting go.
Everything has a neutrality to it. Nothing has a built-in meaning automatically. The meaning we give it is the effect that it has in our lives. This idea, there's really no such thing as the future. There are an infinite number of probable future realities all existing at the same time.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
If you have a golf ball-sized consciousness, when you read a book, you'll have a golf ball-sized understanding. When you look out, a golf ball-sized awareness. And when you wake up in the morning, a golf ball-sized wakefulness. But if you could expand that consciousness, then you read the book, more understanding. You look out, more awareness. And when you wake up, more wakefulness. It's consciousness. And there's an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us.
Allowing yourself to really get a handle on paying attention to our definitions, to how we define things, because the definitions are equivalent to what we believe to be true. So it's very important to pay attention to how we're actually defining something, because it's only the definition that causes the experience. So if we're experiencing something as stressful, if we're experiencing something as difficult, if we're experiencing something as a struggle, it's not because the thing itself has those qualities. It's because we're imbuing that situation with those qualities by how we're defining it, based on how we've been taught to think of things, how we've been taught to view things, and that's the programming that you're talking about. So the first thing to realize, to unlock oneself from that program, is to really change the definitions on all levels that don't work for you, that don't align with your highest excitement. People are constantly looking at the issue of trust, and they're constantly looking at the issue of habits and patterns, and wondering, like you said, how do we change these habits? How do we change these patterns? How do we learn to trust ourselves? How do we learn to trust our lives?
Your grandchildren, they're waiting for their father to come back home. That's their reality. And this job, this last job, that's how I get there. I would not be standing here if I knew any other way.
Come back to reality, Tom.
You create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream. And they fill it with their subconscious.
Projections are closing in quick.
Those were not normal projections. They've been trained, for God's sake.
Dreams are gonna collapse.
the way we're framing that question is already putting us at a disadvantage, because we're already defining this idea of learning to trust, learning how to break habits, as being difficult. And the very idea, the very definition we have of a habit is that it's something difficult to change. That's not a definition that is positive. That's not a definition that works. A habit is something you do that you don't know you're doing. Once you know you're doing it, once you know you have the habit, it's gone. In other words, the recognition that you have the habit is actually the end of the process of getting rid of it, not the beginning. And if you understand that the only way you can know you had a habit is to actually not have it anymore, is to be outside of it, is to be beyond it, then that can start you in a different state of understanding that it's how you define these things, how you define these concepts, that in most ways determines how you experience your life. The issue I talked about trust. Many people think that we have to learn how to trust things. We don't. We already trust in something all the time, 100% of the time. If we didn't trust in something, we would have no experience at all. You don't have to learn how to trust. You just have to decide what it is you're trusting in. And by changing what the trust is in from a negative idea to a positive idea, then you're going to get that experience as opposed to the other experience. So it's really about watching those definitions and really being clear on how it is we may be automatically defining things, thinking and assuming that those definitions automatically come with the concept instead of recognizing that we're the ones putting that meaning into them, that the object or the situation or the circumstance by itself has absolutely no built-in meaning whatsoever. It's just a neutral, blank prop. When we give it meaning, that's when we start to experience the way we start to experience it. So if we catch ourselves and say, okay, wait a minute, I'm having a difficult experience here. What would I have to believe is true? What would I have to define is true about myself in relation to this experience that would allow me to experience it as difficult? When we start asking those kinds of questions and we listen carefully, we will start getting the answers. We will start having conscious recognition of what those definitions are that have been subconscious all this time. And when we find out what those definitions are and bring them into conscious recognition, we start to realize and start to understand that they have nothing to do with us, that we probably did pick them up from our parents, our friends, our society when we were growing up, and that they actually don't belong to us. They belong to other people, but we bought into them. And we believed they were true in order to survive. We took them on because we felt we had to in order to get along with our parents, in order to get along with our friends. And so we bought into these ideas. But now, as we mature, we begin to realize and discover that we've been carrying around belief systems that don't belong to us, that have nothing to do with our true frequencies. Yeah. And that's when we begin to realize when we hold on to beliefs that don't belong to us, that makes us a belief thief. We're stealing other people's beliefs. We don't want to be thieves. We don't want to steal other people's beliefs. So it's time to drop them. They don't belong to us. It's time to give them back to where they came from and just let them go. Because when he says, when you finally identify a belief that is out of alignment with your true self, it will appear to be nonsensical. It will appear to be illogical because it doesn't belong to you. And as soon as it appears to make no sense that you should hold on to that belief, you will let it go.
As long as the Matrix exists, the human race will never be free.
Those of us that are still holding on to that victim role, and watching how so many people are releasing that victim role. So many people are waking up and realizing that their thoughts are creating their reality, their emotions are creating that reality, and when they are hanging on to, oh, poor, pitiful me, that poor, pitiful me is reflected and amplified and sent right back to them. And so everybody has a choice. You can either create your reality as a heaven, or you can experience the hell which you so desire and are creating too. And it doesn't really matter, you know. It's just how the game works. And now it's being amplified so that those things that we experience, just as I'm putting forth love, that love is exaggerated and sent back to me sometimes in waves that's kind of difficult for me to handle that much incoming love. I know that sounds strange, but it's a reality. It doesn't mean that I want to tone it down. It just means that that exaggeration is what I experience, and I'm not used to that amount of love that many of you guys are sending to me, or I'm picking up from the universe, or, you know, my guides, my higher self is also sending to me. The opposite is true with these guys that are going through and creating their negative side right now, that are hanging on to the old ways, that are hanging on to their egos, that are trying to be controlling and manipulative. As we are coming through these intense energies, everything is being amplified and reflected back through them as their own creation. And in my conversation with my friend this morning, we were talking about compassion and pity. I have compassion for every single person that's going through their experience right now. But if they are creating their crap, if they are creating their illness and they're holding on to it as ownership rather than seeing it for a process that they're going through, that they wish to change, that they wish to master, if they're hanging on to it for negative reasons because it gives them emotional feedback from other people, I have no pity on them. And it's also nice to see others having the same understandings as I too am, that we have to allow these people to go through their depths. We have to let them hit bottom and to realize that they're creating their reality. They are manifesting their life. And have no pity on them, because if we do, then that just feeds into it. They have to wake up and have the realization that they're creating the problems within their field, their existence, before they'll wake up and realize they are the master of it. They're doing this themselves. God's not doing it to you. Nobody's doing this stuff to you. We're all doing it to ourselves. And it's just a process. It is a process that everybody on this planet is going through right now.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do, which is just flip out.